Alright, good evening, everybody. It is Monday, July 7th, 2025, and we'll call the Prescott Planning Commission meeting to order. We'll take roll call. Steve? Here. Josh? Here. Mike? Here. And Dave Hogel's here. Approval of the Planning Commission minutes of June 2nd, 2025.
Motion to approve as written.
Second.
Motion made second, approve the June 2nd, 2025 Planning Commission meeting minutes. Any discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Oppose? Motion carried, and I will be a voting member tonight just because we need me. Comprehensive plan updates, and I forget your first name again. Josh. All right, Josh.
Yes.
Josh from Cedar Core, right?
Yep.
We'll be presenting the chapters 5 and 6 for us.
Yeah, I'll see if I can scroll in here a little, make this a little bigger. So as always, we start with the last month's goals, objectives, and policies, and I do see that it looks like the first four objectives are probably housing, and I'm not sure if I copied that wrong or if that was from the plan. Hopefully that was just me doing that, not the past plan. But anyways, the goals, and in past months, Matt would cover the survey information. I'm going to do that as part of the plan, so I don't have the separate PowerPoint, but I'll just cover the highlights of the survey stuff. So economic development goals, objectives, and policies. So the city of Prescott has a self-directed and diverse economy where businesses value sustainable business practices, provide a wide range of job opportunities for area residents, and help expand the local entrepreneurial economy. So that's the one goal that we have listed. It covers a lot, usually pretty broad, but I think it sounds okay. Objectives, so the first four, I'm just going to go through, disregard because it's all related to housing. Not that housing isn't economic development, but housing was our last chapter. So number 5, an objective is to increase tourist-based businesses. Number 6, increase light manufacturing industries. 7, grow downtown businesses and redevelopment. 8, identify potential economic clusters that can be developed. 9, provide information to new and existing businesses to learn about economic development resources available in Prescott. 10, increase parking in the downtown area. 11, provide adequate space for future commercial and industrial development. And 12, encourage redevelopment of contaminated sites and underutilized sites where feasible. I think those, again, cover a broad range of different objectives, spanning the width of economic development. And
Quick question.
yeah.
So as we make these types of, I mean, this type of rhetoric is like over and over again. It's all good stuff. But when you say things like increase light manufacturing industries, like when we create all this verbiage, is there sub-steps to these ideas, or is this just broad brush topics?
Yeah, it's a great question. So some of these, there may not be a lot of things. They're action items that the city or municipality can take. Sometimes you're going to be looking to maybe the county, regional, or state to help out with some of those things. But in something like in a light industry, I mean, that's where you could say we've got a TIF district on the north side. Okay, so when you've got the TIF district, you've got the ability to assist or provide infrastructure for light industry businesses. So that's an example of where the city could actually be proactive and try to attract light industries as opposed to heavy or polluting industries.
Sure.
So I mean, we could
sense.
clarify that in something of like, focus on light industrial manufacturing or, low environmental impact businesses or things like that, depending on the direction we want to go. So, yeah, I agree with you, and that's probably something that maybe as we get kind of everything sort of packaged up, we can look at and maybe go back and say, okay, this seems nice, but what does it really mean? Do we really have the ability to do anything with it? If not, it doesn't really serve a purpose other than it sounds nice.
As I was reading these, I had that thought many times, and I was like, this all sounds really good, but do we have is it just
Rhetoric, like you said.
Just words.
Yeah, right.
Just words. But part of it, if I'm not mistaken, is you got to have at least talk about it a little bit in your master
Sure.
plan to get your state grants. Yeah, we talk about it. We'd like to go further. It's in our plan.
Sure.
Like a grant for, I don't know, parking, I don't know if there's a grant for parking, but like saying that,
Yeah.
yeah, we've been talking about it for 10 years.
Yeah,
Okay.
we're still trying to
Well,
do
there's just
something. Yeah.
out of the blue, hey, we need parking.
Well, and there's stuff in the county too that's economic growth boards and
Yep.
stuff like that can help too occasionally.
Yep.
Yep.
If we hit the right kind of.
Just, but it does make sense. A lot of it, okay, it's a lot of nice words, but what are we gonna do? But we gotta have it in case something comes along that we can do something. So,
That's
Makes
exactly
sense.
it, because it shows support. Let's say there's a development project in the downtown and you say, well, they ask for an exception to not have parking or something like that. If that's like, some communities allow variances or conditional use permits to do away with parking requirements in some cases. We're like, well, no, we need more. This is showing that we need more parking, so we're gonna hold steadfast to our code and say, because when you do a condition, like, getting off on a tangent a little bit, but a conditional use permit is really hard to deny, unless there's substantial evidence. But if you can point to your comprehensive plan and say, hey, our comprehensive plan says we need more parking, and you're trying to get away with doing parking because it's gonna save you money, our evidence is that our comp plan says we need more parking. I think you'd have a better case to deny something like that, or at least make a condition that's, no, we're gonna require that.
Makes sense.
So some of this may not be feasible, but it does lend support to what your, what your compass is for as a city. What do you want to see happen? And you can't always predict the future. We don't know. And some programs that might exist today won't exist in 10 years, or vice versa. They may exist down the road, or they don't right now. So we just kind of, these are the objectives that we'd like to see. And I agree,
Sure.
if there's some that are just kind of
Cool.
ridiculous, we can get rid of them. There's not. But I think most of these are probably pretty, tourism's important, downtown parking is important, redevelopment is important. So all those things I think are kind of in the same.
I like them all. I just was thinking it'd be really fun to take them to like the next step, but that was just a question that makes more sense.
well, at some point, hopefully we do.
Yeah, or at the very least, it supports a future effort to get to the next step, or doesn't put
Sure.
you in a bad situation, so. So policies are gonna be a little bit, this is the opportunity probably where we can whittle things down, where there's a little more proactivity on the city's part. So if you talk about complete phase 2 of the downtown riverfront project, we're already doing that, right? That's already in process. But if we weren't, if this was last year, we'd know that there's a plan in place to implement that plan. Organize economic development seminars or a business after-hours group for existing or potential businesses so that they can learn about programs available to them to help meet their goals. I don't know if that's been done. This was taken from the plan 10 years ago. I'm not sure if anybody here is familiar with, what the chamber does, or is that something that's currently happening? I know that happens in
host
other
events all
communities.
the time, don't they? I mean, I don't know if that's the goal or outcome. It's usually to open or celebrate a business, but.
Right, it's the history, tourism now, we got the tourism tax, the room
The room
tax.
tax, yep.
So they're using that to try to promote the city, through different avenues and grants to
Sure.
promote activities.
Okay.
So they're
Anything
starting to get it.
Get people in.
Right. As they say, what is it, heads and beds.
Heads and beds, yeah.
So,
All right, coordinate with other agencies to construct a business incubator building in the industrial park. Coordinate with other agencies to develop, develop a downtown business incubator for retail businesses. Work with the Chamber of Commerce to produce tourism-based brochures promoting the city's history, natural environment, Freedom Park, and other attractions. Work with the school district and adjacent towns to identify areas of prime farmland that could be preserved for local food production and economy. Establish metrics to benchmark and track the economic impacts of tourists on the city's economy. Now, I think a couple months ago we talked about it. And Dallas was a person that came up, and I had asked him about kind of the historic tourism, and he said there was some kind of survey, but he was not able to find that information. So that would have been kind of interesting to see if there was something related to some kind of benchmarks or what the historical impact of downtown tourism or of tourism is in the city. Establish metrics to benchmark and track the impact new industry has on local unemployment and wages.
we throw another one in there, just a thought, as I'm thinking today and thinking.
Yeah,
Could you say something like identify blighted areas and the redevelopment possibilities?
yeah, for sure.
Because, we got that one burnt out building right now, part of the old seed company. Maybe buy that up and that could be your, whether it's apartments or the incubator building or whatever.
When
Yeah.
you're talking about the old lumberyard.
Yeah, the old lumberyard.
Yeah.
I'd call Trio Industries, whatever it
Yeah.
was there. I mean, that's been sitting there for a while, maybe this,
I was thinking that'd be good for that multi-use unit housing.
Well, that's what I
area.
thought. So the TIF, I don't know if the TIF, it's within a certain TIF, could we buy it up and tear that, it's blighted, it's not gonna be rebuilt. So now would be the time to try to buy it
Well,
out.
and you would think the price would be a little better since there is no repair being done.
Right, so something to think about at the council level, because I know the
Yeah.
council is identify that as blighted, a blighted area.
Yeah.
And then say, maybe the city purchases it and then finds a developer. So just, that's a thought that
Well,
would
I
be in
thought that
this.
Rob was saying that there are a few developers that want to build multi-unit.
Right, and that would be a
housing.
good spot for it, next to the car wash, there's a few single families behind it, but then you got the mobile home and then the seed
It'd
company.
be that
seed
type of
company.
area.
So it might fit not too bad in there.
Yeah, and I don't know, so our second page of these got cut off, so there's actually a bunch more, and I,
Yeah, I didn't see any on the next page, that's why I jumped in and cut you.
yeah, so I have a bunch more, I don't know, they got cut off in the
Trying to think
PDF, so I'll just read through them, a number, so one of them actually touches on that, it talks about
Okay.
identifying potential redevelopment areas, but, number 9 is review ordinances and programs for commercial businesses and industries to identify ways to include incentives for energy efficiency, local food production, zero waste, and reduced water usage. Number 10, encourage businesses to apply for the Travel Green Wisconsin certification, which recognizes efforts to protect the environment and buy local. I'm gonna check on that. I don't even know. I'm not,
It exists anymore?
yeah. I'll check on that. Develop downtown building design guidelines so businesses can utilize the downtown facade loan program. Assist downtown businesses in creating a business improvement district that allows business properties downtown to contribute to programs aimed at promotion, management, maintenance, and development of that district. Basically, you're looking to create a Main Street program or something similar at that point.
Isn't that our one that we have 50,000 put away each, that we just started?
And you might do that just through the city's budget, but,
No, there's supposed to be, there's an actual fund set up with $300,000 to, at 50,000 a year that people can,
okay.
Is that for the
different-
facade loan program or is that,
what the heck they called it, but anyway, it was off the other TIF 4 because we were
Sure.
trying to get the money and put it into a
Yep.
savings account over, I think, over Westcon, I think.
So that's a TIF thing, but what it is I know another city I work in, they have a bid board where people in downtown pay a little tax that actually goes into this fund, and if Josh owned the building downtown and he said, yeah, I wanna fix up, I wanna repaint or I wanna redo the front, he applies for this TIF money grant, and they might give him up to 50%, where it's just free money to say, yeah, let's fix it up, and then next year, Steve says, geez, you did a good job, I wanna do it, it just helps everybody.
The way they got theirs set up is that your max that you can get from the city is 25,000,
Yep.
and they want matching funds, so if you, something that costs 10, you can get 5. and
So
you
it's
pay
kinda,
5.
it's a different program, but does the same thing.
Same type of thing.
Same thing, so, go ahead.
yeah, no, and that, I think that's great. I think sometimes, sometimes there's multiple programs that can do the same thing. I mean, sometimes there's a little overlap, which
Yep.
maybe isn't always the best. People get confused about what programs there are out
Yep.
there, but a bid, I've seen successful bids in some communities. I've seen there's some communities that are maybe looking to do away with that in some instances too. So, but overall, I think there's the Main Street program I've seen. There's another program that's not quite the full Main Street program. But there's two different tiers of kind of what the WEDC helps with, which is a state organization.
Sure.
All right, number 13, identify areas in the downtown for additional vehicle and motorcycle parking. Work with municipalities and organizations and government agencies to protect the quality, integrity, and intent of the Great River Road, which is Highway 35. Develop a Prescott Youth Entrepreneurial Fund to encourage and support Prescott students to start and build businesses in their home community upon graduation. So kind of a unique idea. And formalize the Prescott Development Incentives guidelines. I talked to Matt about that a little bit. Identify areas for future commercial and industrial development on the future land use map. And this is one that I was talking about before. Identify potential redevelopment areas and consider environmentally contaminated sites as part of that analysis. So if you wanted to expand on that, if we wanted to take it a step further and say, I don't know if we want to do that, but an option would be the city could look to acquire properties and, coordinate with developers to redevelop those properties.
I think it's not a bad idea, but you'd have to probably borrow money. Or unless you get the TIF. Can TIF buy blighted areas? No. You could identify it as a blighted area.
Well, so the
and make
TIF
a
doesn't, yeah, until there's money in there, you know, the TIF, yeah, you can do property acquisition with TIF funds. That's an eligible expense.
That's
Yep.
okay, all right.
Okay, and then continue to support the development expansion of the Cooley River Trail System, and then work to encourage the expansion, creation of desirable businesses identified in this chapter. So it's, again, that's like 21 different policies.
Sure.
And I think, again, a lot of them are pretty good. I'm gonna check on that Travel Green Wisconsin certification, but I don't think that any of them are bad or anything off center here. I think we're going down the right road with that, so. All right. So on to the next chapter, the transportation chapter. We just scroll down here to the survey results. Then almost 95% of the respondents listed vehicle as their primary mode of transportation. That's no surprise. 64% of respondents believe that street repairs would most benefit their daily travel. 51% encourage more connectivity between paths and sidewalks. Actually, surprised that's that low. I would have thought maybe a little higher, but lack of sidewalks and safe crossings throughout the city, particularly along busy roads such as US 10, Wisconsin 35, and major streets like Canton, Campbell, and Borner, Kinnickinnick, and Cherry. Sorry, that is a concern. The dangers of walking or biking near schools, parks, and between residential neighborhoods due to poor lighting, high-speed traffic, and the absence of marked or signaled crosswalks. Areas around Freedom Park, Pine Ridge, Mary T., and newer developments are repeatedly mentioned as needing immediate improvements. Removal of hazardous signage placed in the middle of trails, implementing better traffic control measures, and increasing street lighting. Lowering speed limits, stop signs, and flashing crosswalk signals. Other intersections of concern include US 10 and Campbell, US 10 and Canton, and Wisconsin 35 and Monroe, with suggestions of roundabouts or better signage to manage congestion. Multiple intersections were described as confusing or unsafe, particularly those near schools, Quick Trip, and Circle K in the downtown riverfront area. And then we've talked a lot about with our bicycle and pedestrian crossing study. There's a couple of really challenging intersections that you guys have with the frontage streets, and I know there's a plan, I think, to redo, and I can't remember the street that comes in off, is it Canton and 35? Or 10, the main one that comes in off.
29?
29, 35.
29 comes in from the north and 35 comes in from the south.
So it has to be 29 and 10.
29 and 10, yeah.
Yeah, that-
35 still goes to the north, though.
It does,
Yeah.
yes. Jumps on to 29 for a bit.
Yeah, so yeah, just looking at that, all 3 or 4 of those intersections have some challenges just because of that frontage street.
Just because of highway.
Yeah.
DOT won't lower the limit, so.
Yeah,
Well, it's a 45, but no, everybody thinks it's 90.
yeah, and that's a
We'd
concern.
like it to be
There's
slow.
plenty of them that come up Cherry Street at 45 miles an hour too. Plenty of them. We were hoping the speed sign in the bottom would slow them down to 35, but it hasn't really.
Has to be a flashing speed sign. All right, go on.
All right. Calls for clear crosswalk markings, flashing signals, and improved walkways, especially near schools, parks, and busy downtown streets. And areas of focus over the next 10 years, walking and biking, emphasis on the need for safer, more accessible routes for walking and biking, particularly around schools and busy roads. Public transportation, interest in small bus, shuttle service, or taxis within Prescott. ATV, UTVs, and golf carts, illegal usage of these vehicles within the city to county routes. And I talked to Matt a little bit about, you guys have golf carts, but you're not interested in ATV, UTVs at this time. So that's what my understanding is anyways.
I think that's police department's also.
Okay.
They have enough to do with the golf carts.
How's that been going, by the way? I mean, I know.
It's not, what, there must be
I
500
think it's
of them in
gotten really
town.
popular. I've got 2 of them. They're great. Love it.
You know, and I
It's just like
think
having an extra car.
they can't go too fast for the ATVs that tear up stuff and they're gunning them and
It's
stuff, so
7
it's,
miles an hour.
so I think the golf cart has gone really well.
Well, and it's much quieter. I live on a street that has ATV, UTVs. I don't mind it, but it can be loud.
Well, it makes more noise, no doubt.
Definitely noisy.
Yep.
So,
And those are made really for off-road and in the country, not on the city street, so.
Yeah, I mean, I like what you guys have done. I think it's,
Well, yes, yes, Josh.
You do see them in some of the small towns up north, but.
You do.
Yeah,
Yes, Josh, it is.
but yeah, for you guys to be able to restrict, the city to restrict it to golf carts, that's impressive, and I don't see that too often. Usually it goes full-fledged ATV, UTV, and,
If we really had a trail right on the edge of town, I think there'd be a little bit more call for it, but there's not really.
Right, like the snowmobiles, we allowed
Yeah.
snowmobiles because the trail came into town, that makes sense to give them a couple of roads. And then, but they would restrict the streets, not
Right.
everywhere, so.
okay. All right, so this chapter, besides, in addition to the survey results, we talk about a number of different topics related to transportation. So the first one is modes of transportation.
Plenty.
And looking at the streets, obviously, is the biggest mode that we have. And we only have 3 arterials in Prescott. And those are your major streets. Typically, it's going to be your highways or interstates, usually where you see traffic, the highest speed traffic and the highest traffic volume streets. So 10, US 10, Highway State 29 and 35 are your arterials. Collectors are your next tier. Basically, these are streets that will serve a good chunk of traffic, but it's getting you to the local roads. And, usually there's some traffic control on there. But you have Albert Street, Borner, Campbell, Cannon, Cherry, Dexter, Kinnickinnick, Orrin, and St. Croix streets. Those are all your collector streets. And those are defined by every 10 years you go through a process with the DOT. I think you're due for it next year, if I'm not mistaken.
Traffic count.
To go through that was a functional classification system analysis, and you look at all those things, traffic control, accidents, things like that with I forget how many member committee, I've been a part of it in a couple communities, but I forget the exact process, but you go through and you help with the mapping and you identify different, the functional classifications of the different streets and help the DOT identify that.
I don't think it matters, but Cannon Street probably is Canton Street.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
right.
Canton instead of,
I'm
yeah.
like, Cannon Street, I don't remember that one. I've been my whole life.
You'd remember it, yeah. Good catch. Canton, I'll make that change. Thank you. It does matter, so I appreciate you letting me know. And then everything else is local roads. So those are gonna be, obviously, your subdivision roads and roads that don't have as much traffic. So next topic is commuting habits. And this was actually pretty interesting. I think a lot of it had to do with COVID and remote work, but the changes are pretty significant, different than you would expect, or not, I guess, under normal 10-year span, different than what you'd expect. Given COVID and the remote working policies, it's not too surprising, but you showed an increase, a number of people that worked in the state and in the county of residence, so that's more people are sticking around here, which is good. And then when you looked at the commutes, the amount of time it took to commute, we saw a bigger increase in the shorter commute times and then a bigger decrease in the longer commute times. And we actually dropped the average commute time by 5 minutes. So when you factor all that in, people are traveling less to and from work, which is good. Spending more time with family and stuff, or at work in some cases. So, and then when you looked at the means of transportation, this also jumped out. A lot of more people work from home. We had a 10% increase in working from home, and then also an increase in walking, about a 4% increase in the number that walked. So I think positive things are positive direction for commuting time and commuting habits. So the next one is traffic counts. Biggest traffic street is the bridge, going to Minnesota, which over, I think, 16,000 trips per day, average annual trips per day. And then the other one is Highway 10 in between Campbell and Pearl Street. That's almost 10,000 trips per day. So that's heavily trafficked. There's a map, and we can touch on the maps at the end. But it just shows a couple different areas, and usually the DOT provides this information, and it's only in certain spots. So we don't have every traffic on every street by any means, but if the city did have a traffic counter and wanted to do traffic counts for specific projects, we can certainly do that. But the DOT does a nice job. They have a interactive database that you can go and you can find and look up traffic counts from different years and different locations on the street, so it's very, very handy. The north-south arterial planning, if you recall back a couple years ago, we did an amendment to the comp plan, which just included, we shifted out basically the bypass essentially around the east side of the city, further out past. There was a subdivision, I think, that was approved, and that was kind of bisecting it, and we're like, well, we're really good, want to move that out to the east. So that was a comp plan amendment, it was a couple years ago, and that which got approved. And then we're just following that same line. So if we did that, if we wanted to revisit that or look at that a little closer, we could, certainly could as part of this process. But I think we spent a good amount of time on it a couple years ago.
We did. That's why I think, again, I'm gonna just say that developments that go out that way, that's part of the turn lane and even part of that bypass. Do they pay a portion? Not a very big portion maybe, but a portion, because they'll be the ones that use it. You're not gonna come from your house and buzz around there and get the tax, but out in the country they will. So I think, again, it's not called an impact fee. What is it called? Capital cost fee is what some cities call it, where they just say each lot pays $500 to help put that road in, or $1,000, whatever we, the city would want to pay. So that would be something I would say, that north-south. That should be in there, and I think it should be addressed in the subdivision ordinance and or this master plan, that as development happens, they should be paying for portions of the turn lanes and the bypasses and the collectors and whatever it's all called.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it sounds like an impact fee, but it sounds like that you could do it outside of the impact fee scope. Is that
Called
what
the capital cost, yes.
Capital cost?
I know,
Okay.
I know a city that does that now. Here's your capital cost.
Okay.
You know, we're not gonna do the road today because there's only 10 houses, but guess what? You're gonna have 300 later. 300 later.
Yeah.
And we want that turn lane so that it's not, okay, it's backing up traffic because someone wants to cross. We got a turn lane so people can, keep some traffic flowing, or a roundabout, but sometimes roundabouts are for high. This would be more of, okay, turn into
Well,
that
that is
subdivision.
where they're talking roundabouts out and mean houses out and everything else.
Right, the one they're talking about in town.
Yeah.
So that's just something I think should be addressed, is this north-south corridor should be addressed sooner than later, saying as development comes, figure the area that would use it and identify it and say, let's get the developer start pitching in a little bit. And it's called a capital cost, not an impact fee.
Yeah, it's interesting. And I think in addition to that, the other step is to preserve that corridor, so we don't.
So I don't know how they do it in RF, River Falls, but that's what they call it. And must be some, I don't know, it's called a loophole, but a mechanism, they don't call it
Sure.
impact fee. Because impact fees is, if anyone don't know, and I just haven't worked, is that after, 5 or 7 years, if you don't use it, it's supposed to go back to the property owners.
Yeah.
Well, the other kind we can put into a fund and just leave it there until we need it.
Up to 7 years if it's an impact.
No,
fee.
I'm talking the
yeah.
way you want it.
Capital
fund.
costs, yeah, that's what I think. It's just, because again, it's down the road. We don't, the subdivision I live in, again, if I'd had to pay $1,000 extra in my lot, so I could eventually get the tax a lot quicker than coming through town, darn right, I'd put the 1,000. So that's, and it would sit there, because
Right.
there's not enough really to do that, other than people would use it more than you think. So,
But
Yeah,
just FYI, if you want to
But
throw that in
eventually
there,
too, that, we might
address that in this one.
get a boulevard or something going across, because we'll have a road eventually going to Highway 10.
I
Going
guarantee
through
you
there.
will, it's a matter of when and where. I might be gone by then, but.
Well,
At least
yeah.
they plan ahead, and it's not, okay, now everybody in the city, let's pay, we're gonna tax you to put this the
don't
north-south
need
road. Huh?
That you don't need.
That I really probably don't need, exactly, so.
Yeah, and I think then, like I said, the next step would be, because we have it in the comprehensive plan right now, in the future of transportation, but we don't have it in the official map. And so the official map is really what is the regulation that would give the city the authority to preserve that. When if someone who comes in and does a subdivision and they say, hey, we want to put these lots here, and we're like, well, no, we actually are going to have a road. I think we have 100-foot wide, kind of a rough idea. But the next step would be to kind of get down to the details and try to map out where that corridor is going to go. And so that when any future development or future subdivision happens, they have to preserve that corridor for future road.
Well, but then plus the other thing is, okay, you do a plan of what area would be affected by that, so that if I'm gonna say, hey, Steve, you're doing a development, we're charging you $1,000 a lot, why? Where's your plan?
Right.
Well, we got this north-south, and we're saying this much area will be using it, you're in that area, and you're gonna be paying a percentage of it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, good discussion. All right, so Next item is the bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. We've got a bicycle and pedestrian plan right now that's, I think it was updated. What did I say?
06, 05, I think you said?
Yeah, let's see here.
I seen it in there earlier.
Is
Yeah.
it more than just,
2005, 2006, I thought it was.
Yeah, updated in 2015, now called
Oh.
the City of Prescott Bicycle and
Oh, that's-
Pedestrian Network Plan. So there's a plan in place, 2015 through 2020, something that could be updated. But obviously, I think that's an important, a lot of the projects I've worked on in Prescott are related to trails and, kind of connectivity and that kind of, those types of projects. And so I think that's certainly something we want to keep in mind as projects develop and as future opportunity. Like the Cooley River trails are going to be priceless,
Oh.
and huge boon to this area and for single track biking and just people getting out and doing stuff. So it's I'm excited to see things happen there, and see what that does for the area.
Since we technically
Purchase
own it,
it?
yeah.
Okay. I haven't yet.
So yeah, just a lot of go through the benefits of
Yep.
bike and pedestrian. I do have to update. I see there's a Point Douglas Trail. I got to update that section, so I got a note there. And then, yeah, talk about the Cooley River Trail System a little bit. And obviously, that's going to develop probably quite a bit between now and the next comprehensive plan update. So
Yep.
we won't do a whole lot there. Truck traffic, obviously, Highway 10 and 35 and 29 are your major truck routes, and those are kind of established by the DOT. Those connect to, obviously, the whole statewide system.
Yep.
And your busiest corridors. Railroads,
Doesn't stop here, but it goes through.
yeah, so you've got Burlington Northern Santa Fe Railroad. I've got an extra paragraph here that I gotta clean up, but yeah, not a whole lot of benefit at this point, but
Right.
it's something to note. Air transportation, your major air hub is gonna be, for commercial, is gonna be Minneapolis, St. Paul. You can get in and out of Red Wing, which is nearby, closer, sort of close by, 25 miles, but since you don't really have an airport, there's not a whole lot to address, but we are required to at least look at all of these things. So water transportation, do have different opportunities, different slips along the rivers there. I know there will be, have a motorized boat, we have a non-motorized boat launch and a motorized boat launch with phase 2 of the riverfront project, so pretty well covered there. I know there's other, so.
Okay. And public transit at this time.
Public transit, really nothing right now, and as a community your size, it's pretty rare. I mean, I live in a city of 20,000 people, we've got a shared ride. I know there's been push to do some Uber, but we don't even really have that in a city of 20,000, so I know there was a reference to kind of a small bus or shuttle service or something in the survey, so in some cases, there are some grant opportunities for the state to help participate in the acquisition of a vehicle, but then it's an ongoing liability. You're going to be paying for it ongoing. So, snowmobile routes, we're able to get that updated map in the plan. We touched a little bit on ATV, UTVs, and golf carts. Basically, golf carts are allowed. Public parking, that was obviously mentioned in the survey as something needing more downtown parking. But we did identify some of the parking facilities available in downtown. And that's expanding with the riverfront project. Micro-mobility options, historically that used to mean more like a electric scooter or, the rascal scooter type thing, where people with disabilities. Now it's extended to e-bikes and e-scooters and all these things you see kids zipping around on. There's not really, to my knowledge, I don't work in any community that has any regulations on them, but man, the kids really fly on those things, and
Some of those e-bikes go just as fast as a motorcycle.
yeah, so it's just something that the state now says we should touch on, so we're touching on it, and maybe, I don't know, I don't have any model ordinances to give you, but I have concerns for the safety of people doing
That's why it
those
says that here now, to consider some regulations, and I think that's a good idea.
things. Yeah,
Tells that we might someday.
Some of them that are, really fast, or able to go real fast, might not hurt to hit a license plate on them either.
And that's why I think the police eventually will kind of,
Yeah,
and and maybe the state will say, hey, you know what, these, by anything over this, you gotta have them licensed.
it's just
Maybe.
some way to
Maybe.
actually know who's,
well, and the age is what concerns. I see these young kids doing these things, and they're on these things, and they're flying, and I'm like,
The little e-scooters, they're going
Yeah.
30 miles an hour.
on the sidewalk, and you could hit anything, and they're not wearing helmets, and I don't know, just hate to see
and
something.
then if you have a motorcycle, you gotta have a helmet till 18, I think it is.
I think so.
So, anyways, just something for discussion. And then future roads, sidewalks, and multi-use trails, we do have a map that's part of your bike and pedestrian plan, network plan. And we just basically incorporated that into this.
Is this where you put that to, where developers who always want turn lanes as develops happen?
Well, so what we can do,
Is that where
yeah.
you put this kinda?
Yep, so that's a good, we can
Just a
either.
thought. I know
Yeah.
it should go somewhere in here, in my opinion. I don't know where.
So, and that's, can you restate that? You said developers required to put in turn lanes?
Well, yeah, as development happens, they should be required, or at least assist in paying for future turn lanes that are needed due to the development. Something on that order. I'd have to rethink it again.
Well, we have to think
But you know
about
what I'm
it.
saying, as
Yeah.
development happens, why should, again, us four here that already have a house, pay for a turn lane that, the guy that builds 500 homes out, just outside of town, and now we need one, DOT says we need one, because sometimes they'll do that, why should we be paying for it when they're the ones that really cause the demand, so.
Well, we still would have to kick in, I'm sure, but.
Well, a portion.
It just won't be,
Right, but they pay, again,
$1 million.
if you did the survey and said it's gonna cost us 50, or 200,000 to build it, well, and there's 200 homes, maybe they pay 70% of that, and, yeah, we as a taxpayers help pay for it, because again, we benefit
will
from it
lose
too.
some.
We benefit from it because it helps the traffic flow and people's safety of everybody, so. So that, and that's where that study would, I think, come in.
right.
If they did a study and say, okay, this area is gonna use that turn lane, how many
Well,
homes and what
We got,
percent.
out there, we have, 150, 200 homes probably can still go in there. And then if you go across the street that's still for sale, there's
Right.
at least that many more in
Well, probably
there.
another 200-300 there, that's
Yeah.
on the south side, so.
So yeah, typically what we would see is that those things should all be addressed in a development agreement when the subdivision is approved.
But even,
Typically.
right, but, so I'd like it in the subdivision, but then here, at least if we're writing for grants saying, hey, we need help because.
Yeah, no, yeah, we'll put it in the comp plan, but I think the comp plan would make that recommendation to when you update your subdivision ordinance or when development agreements are
There
on
you
the
go,
docket.
Luke. Tell Matt I want that in there.
Yeah, I got it written down.
Put it right
Yeah.
on-
Not that I
Put a
count.
note right on top of his desk.
Yeah. Dave
Well, and a
says,
bigger
I mean, it
subdivision,
should, because I mean,
it's
I think they're
important. I think,
gonna add to that development out there.
well, on both sides of that road, it's gonna happen.
Well, no, I mean, I think there
Oh,
is
yeah.
gonna be an ad this year.
Yep. Well, that's
well,
something we
and
can.
bigger,
So many lots again.
bigger development projects are gonna often include or trigger a traffic impact analysis, and then that's gonna say, well, that's where you're gonna get your, if the DOT doesn't do it, that's where it's gonna get your determination that you're gonna need a turn lane. You got too much traffic going into here, it's gonna bottleneck this
Well, that
road.
and the road itself will have to
Yeah.
expand, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah, a little wider and stuff,
Yeah.
so. All right.
Yeah. Okay, very good. And the next section just goes to, the state requires us to go through a list of all these plans. I missed a section. Road expenditure planning. Okay, so a couple things, the tools that the city has at their disposal is the CIP, the capital improvement plan. You guys do a nice, you have a 7-year CIP, which is nice, and you have it up on your website, keeping up to date on that, which is great. It makes, the council's job a little easier when you're starting to plan for, it doesn't solve the budget problems, but it makes it easier saying, okay, we're planning out this for the next 7 years. And then the other one is the PACER rating. That's basically done every 2 years, and that's where you go through and you do an assessment of your conditions of your roads, 1 through 10, 1's being terrible condition, 10 being good, and then you color code it, and you do it. You do that every 2 years, and that's what kind of helps, I think, pinpoint areas for your CIP. But
And your state aid probably.
state, yeah, yep. So, those are the two main tools we have for transportation expenditures. The next is transportation plans. So you have the CIP, and I could probably add Pacer here while I'm at it. We do the CIP and then the bicycle pedestrian plan. Regional plans, there really wasn't anything mentioned. So the DOT again they have a really good website that lets you kind of search through all these different documents, and they put up they have two different and it goes by DOT region. So we're broken up, and I don't know if there's 7 or 9 different DOT regions, but it's broken. We're in like the Northwest.
That's what says your Northwest region.
Northwest region.
Yep.
And so for regional plans, there isn't any active projects. The ones that do show up are for the city are on the state 6-year highway plan, which includes Wisconsin 35 from on Wakota Street to US Highway 10, and then US 10 from Minnesota-Wisconsin state line on the bridge to east of Highway Wisconsin 29. So those are the two that show up in the state documents. So that's what they have, and that's what we have to look for. And then in addition to that, we've got a laundry list of plans that the DOT has. Some are outdated, so it's kind of amusing. We have some Wisconsin Pedestrian Policy Plan 2020, Wisconsin Bike Transportation Plan 2020. So we're already past those dates, and even the Wisconsin Active Transportation Plan 2050 is in progress. So when we go back and look at, we have to see if there are objectives or goals in those plans match up with the objectives and goals and policies of our comprehensive plan.
Or just ours to theirs.
Or ours to theirs, right. So I've the highlighted things that I have in the packet. So we'll be coming back to this when we go through the goals, objectives, and policies and say, okay, these are the ones that I thought maybe kind of qualify or would fit based on the plans that the DOT has. But once we develop our goals, objectives, and policies, we'll go back and look at this section and see which ones do match. And you don't have to match any, it just says the state statutes require us to go back and look and identify any consistent goals between the plans that the state has and the plans that the local municipality has. So it's interesting exercise, doesn't really do a whole lot, but at least you can see what the plans are. I'd be interested to see what the 2050 plans and the other plans that are yet to be updated. But DOT does a nice job with keeping things going on that. And then the next section is really just a list of programs. And the two main resources for programs are going to be the DOT, and they provided a couple different funding programs like the LRIP and the T grant, and then the DNR. And DNR is mostly going to deal with trails and things like that. So that's pretty much the chapter for transportation, and then we'll get into goals, objectives, and policies next month.
All right, go ahead, any questions?
Quick question, so some of these appear to be out of date, but an example of one is the City of Prescott's bicycle and pedestrian plan was a 5-year plan, last updated in 2015. Before we finalize our review of this and updating of it, which is every 10 years, right?
Minimum 10 years, yeah.
Is it in our best interest to try and get some of these updated? Like what committee handles that plan, and pressure them to come up with a new one and then update this to match it?
Yeah, so there's two ways to do it, and I think you can do it that way and say, hey, we'd like to incorporate this into the comp plan. It's going to be a 10-year plan. The other option is you keep that plan out, reference it, and then, because right now we have it I think we have the map showing, this is the traffic, functional classification and traffic density map, so you can see where there's, and I think it's even accidents, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So you can see the hot spots where there's the heat map, where there's
Higher
higher accident volume, higher traffic volume, and then the functional road classification. And we've got the bypass, I can't use the cursor here, but bypass on the right side of here, over here. And then this is the existing facilities for bicycle and pedestrians, or sidewalks and trails. And then this was taken from the bicycle trail. I mean, hard to see, but the dashed lines are future ones. And maybe it would be worthwhile.
Yeah, I think it should be.
Steve, I think you bring up a good point that maybe it'd be worthwhile to say, hey, maybe it's the plan commission that does this, I don't know.
Yeah.
But if you have another committee to
They
spend
had a
it,
bicycle pedestrian committee at one time,
Say,
but maybe it's
Spend a
probably
minute.
planning commission.
you know,
Didn't they
spend,
also have money at one time, but they wanted us to go down through 35, and so we gave the money back to them?
That was that one that goes up to Freedom Park, and I
Yeah.
think so. So I agree with you, Steve, maybe we put it on the planning commission's agenda sooner than later and talk about it. That
well,
would be for-
wouldn't it be neat if their plan went out to align with this plan? So that next time we do this plan, we can check back in with them then and say, hey, what's your future hold to
Right.
update again, whatever, but.
These- Yeah, so if we show sidewalks going to Highway 10 and Canton or whatever, that the state would say, hey, let's get a crossing then while you're redoing that state highway, what can we do to get our crossing? Is that what you
Yeah.
mean too? As well as the
Yeah.
state's bicycle and
Well,
pedestrian
it's just
plan?
general planning,
Yeah.
because like even this is out of sequence, being 2015, although that might be the last time we did this review, I'm not
Right.
sure, but.
Probably was.
Because I'd even say where I live, I know I get people up there, back even when I was mayor, can we get a trail that gets into the city for our kids to get on?
Yeah,
So now I know we got Freedom Park now, there might be a couple private parcels that we say, hey, can we get an easement to run a trail down through there? Would probably be the Lubick family, but get us to Freedom Park and then Freedom Park and jump to the,
Well, I know-
because everything's going east anyway, it would bring it in.
I know they were trying to get money to do it and follow
Yep.
35 down and have a bridge going across the creek, but I guess
Yeah.
Matt was saying there was no response by
DOT.
DOT for any funds for it.
So, but I think again, as Steve said, if we put it on the plan, if DOT is gonna redo 35 at some point, we can say, hey, how can we design this to get a crossing that's safe?
Right.
And that would be on our plan to show that we want to cross there. So I think we put on the planning commission agenda for future, whether it's a month or two from now before we adopt this master
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
That's not a bad idea.
no, actually, in a lot of grant programs, you can get additional points for your grant application if you have it in multiple plans.
Keep
So if
them-
you have it
keep
in
them
your network
updated,
plan,
yeah.
and it's updated, and you have it in the comp plan, sometimes you can get more points depending on the program.
That sounds
So-
a pretty good idea then.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do that. Luke's right and left-handed, he uses the right side of his brain, the rest of us don't.
So, yeah, so those are the maps, and then we got the snowmobile map.
Yeah, they're helpful, I like the maps.
I think these were the other ones. This got split up.
Oh,
so
just
maybe
gotta
that
drop
was,
the back page, oh well.
well,
They're there.
maybe I did that bad. So I'll take the
We
blame
found
on
it anyway.
What's
Yeah.
that?
We found it.
I found it, yeah. I'll take responsibility
All
for
right,
it.
any other questions or thoughts on that presentation of the review?
when's a good time to talk about incorporating golf cart parking into our community? Which would encourage local residents to drive their golf cart downtown.
Are you talking about identifying spaces just for golf carts?
Maybe convert, make hybrid spots that can be used, multi-purpose, but, people that are putting a golf cart in a parking spot is a bummer, and people that are putting one motorcycle in a parking spot, and they're comparable in size for space you need to protect
Well-
the bike. So you could have some angled, dash lines and label it well, it might work out. That people
No.
are encouraged, don't need many either, just.
No, I mean, even if you took, say you took 2 car spots, you could probably make that like 3 or 4.
Yep, 2 per,
You stack
I
them or-
picture they're coming down the hill, because I usually park there anyways, where you could have one of those along the road spots, 2 golf cart
Oh, I
or
see.
a motorcycle.
Diagonal parking on
And
the,
encourage local residents to drive that instead of their car, to come out to dinner or something, to take up, you know what I mean? Like,
Yep.
I like, or even down around, because you can't get on the main
Broad
street,
Street,
so you'll cross and maybe down there somewhere, take 1 spot, make 2, you can call it motorcycle or golf cart, so it can be,
Are you talking about like
Huh?
on the riverside?
yeah, I mean,
I-
I don't know of a best spot
I think you
for it.
designate some golf cart, some can be motorcycle, in my opinion.
Well, if it's both ways, then when you got the flood run, you got people parking a little more appropriately, because they're encouraged to do so, instead of put one bike sideways in a stall,
So-
because it's cool.
So my thought though there is, I understand that, but again, like you say, locals, it'd be nice if they have golf carts, a place to park. So if you identified them as golf cart parking only, and then maybe during flood road exceptions, you can say open parking to motorcycles.
Or
You know, just
leave it. They'll park wherever they want
How far down do you
anyways.
think we could get by way?
It'll work.
How far, where would you put them, Steve? So the residents would actually use them for downtown?
I would
On the
probably,
hill?
I thought so. That's a good
Or how about
conversion
where that
spot.
used
By
to
Papa
be?
T's and,
Right
by
next
the
to
parking
Papa
lot.
T's is where I thought.
Yeah, I was wondering,
so I think what we'll do is, Luke, check with police and then Mikey Kinnaman. Say, hey, you guys, we're looking at maybe, what do you want, 6, like, a group of 4 here and a group of 4 here?
Or even two car spots for 4 golf.
But
You know,
I mean, how many
or-
spots do we say? Let's
You have to
get
do the
8.
math too. I don't have a tape measure to see
Let's get
what's
8.
gonna
You
work
got a
too.
couple up like what you're talking about, and then a couple down around past St. Croix Liquor.
oh, okay.
That
Yeah.
lot would be,
And it's
So-
gonna take a tape measure to see what's gonna fit, because
Right.
one stall might not fit 2
But,
carts.
you know, by
but
Papa T's here, they got that little
yellow
spot
curb,
where you
yeah,
get away
cheap
with.
spot, we could
So-
fudge.
To have Mikey and the police to say we'd like two groups of 4
Well,
for golf carts. Just,
two parking spots made into 4.
well, just
Yeah.
4
Yeah,
parking
two- yeah, two
spots for
spots.
golf carts
Yeah.
here and 4 for here and whatever it takes to kind of make that happen.
We don't wanna do too many, or people that are critiquing parking might get
Well,
hot about it.
You're losing
But
4.
really,
Yeah.
but really, if people utilize it, which I think they will, carts are
You
getting
lose
really
4 parking
popular.
stalls to get
here's
8.
the only dilemma
Right.
is winter.
Well, I mean, you can,
But you could
that's-
put a sign saying,
Yep.
you know, winter parking or winter,
Golf carts only
yeah, summer, yeah.
September through whatever.
Exactly.
whatever.
Make-
just a little
something
bit
like
more thought, and I think we could get there.
No,
because
I-
it's,
I'm-
So
Right,
yeah.
that's why I want them to at least throw an idea where they think, you know, you're thinking that middle hill is probably the best, either down by Price Rate or up here. or-
Because that's the
Because
best access for
We
a
got
car.
that parking spot across from my house, down there on
Yep,
Dakota.
yep.
The newest one is full.
All the time.
But the other side over there, even though we put a sign that says or public parking, you could be parking there all you wanted and nobody would.
So just get some ideas. It doesn't have to be on that hill, it can be around, just
Yeah, I could talk with them.
downtown.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what like the rules and like regulations are around that, but I could definitely run it by them, see what they think about it.
See if they have any objections, I guess, my
Yeah.
thought, so, all
Yeah.
right.
Do you want to
I
include
mean, I think it
some,
would definitely help to encourage like better parking for golf carts, because I feel like people,
Well, if people take their
wanna-
cart instead of their car, it's just,
Right.
it's great. You end up with 2,
Yep.
well, you end up with two groups down there and
2
one
cars instead
car
of
spot.
one.
you know.
So, all right, thanks.
is this something you want to incorporate in the comp plan, or something you guys will be done with before we adopt this? I don't think
We
it
can
hurts
put it
to
in the
have,
comp plan, don't you think?
have something
We
like
could,
that in the comp
because
plan.
I would argue, if we could take a quick survey with a magic wand and find out that golf carts are quite favorable in the community, people would support this idea.
And it might
to-
expand even a
To
little bit.
accommodate it, you
To
know.
accommodate the locals.
Yeah,
Well, and it can lead to updating your traffic code, like the local traffic code that changes the parking. And then also could update the zoning code where people are providing parking for businesses, and you could say golf carts parking can replace, 1 or 2 stall, whatever, instead, so
Yeah.
there's
2 golf carts
Yeah,
for
2
one
carts,
car.
yeah.
Supposed to have 12 cars, but how about 11 cars, 2 golf carts, or
Yeah, something. I mean, it's something you may want to update your zoning code.
Yeah, it
'cause-
wouldn't hurt to put that in the plan somehow about, in
Okay.
our parking
That's good.
master plan.
so many topics involve trying to reduce gas consumption and trips in cars and stuff, and it's like, this is not only something I really enjoy, golf carts in general
No, you
around
see it in
town,
the
but
city.
also it plays into all those topics too.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, and more energy efficient. So.
actually, absolutely. No,
All right.
great discussion. So,
All right, any other questions or thoughts? Otherwise, we can let Josh head home if he wants to.
I'll stick around for this item, but yeah,
Okay.
good discussion and all. Thank you.
All right, Luke, you're up to bat, aren't you?
yep.
Uh-oh. Say hi to Mom and let everyone know who you are. Why'd you do that last meeting?
Oh, I did do it last week.
All right, then you have to do it
For
again.
those who don't know, I'm Luke, new planner, started last month here, so. So, first item, we're gonna talk about the 635-19 high-density residential district changes. So in the previous June 2nd Plan Commission meeting, we talked about the height limits regarding the high-density residential zoning. So Plan Commission recommended to split the existing high-density residential into 2, basically creating a new medium-density district and then a existing high-density district. The intention being that the medium-density district is existing within the single-family residential, so we don't want to really increase the height limits for those existing apartments for the medium-density residential. And then with the intention of choosing where we want increased height limits with the high-density residential over there on Dexter and Glenridge Drive. So that's an area that we're looking at keeping high-density residential with the intention of bringing it up to 4 habitable floors. So with changing that zoning code, we would want to establish differences between high and medium density districts, so we can have some more clarity and stuff like that. So I'll go over those with you guys. So new districts, so section 635-19 will be divided into 2 new subsections. So 635-19A, R3 medium density residential, and then 635-19B, R4 high density residential. And then the height limits, as discussed before, the medium density residential, those areas that are on there will remain the same with 35 feet at the max. And then we decided to change the R4 high density residential to, or proposed to change it to 4 habitable floors. And then we've also established a little rule saying that floor to ceiling height limits may be established during site plan review to ensure that structures are compatible with the surrounding environment. Just so developers don't get too carried away with that rule. We also looked at minimum lot size, comparing it to other communities around the area. So in the current iteration of high density zoning, we have a base of 32,000 square feet plus 2,000 to 2,800 square feet per additional unit, depending on if it's a 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, or 3-bedroom unit. So we basically thought that it's a very unclear rule. It's very confusing. You have to basically calculate how many units are in a building, how big the lot is, and we propose to change it to basically a flat minimum weight of 24,000 square feet for medium density residential and 26,000 high density residential. The idea being that we already have a lot of form-based standards that developers can fall back on with setbacks, minimum lot size or minimum dwelling unit size, maximum lot coverage. These things basically already make it so the lot coverage or the minimum lot size is already pretty big. The existing minimum lot size basically makes it so the areas just get a lot bigger, the footprint gets a lot bigger than it really needs to be, and it also makes a lot more complicated of a process as well. Another proposal, just the setbacks. So the medium density residential, those will stay the same, 25 feet in the front, 25 feet in the back, 12 feet each on the side yards. And then the high density residential, it was proposed to bring it from 25 feet to 20 feet in the front. Same thing with the rear yard. And then the side yards, 12 feet. The reason being is we looked at surrounding communities. We saw that the high density residential was a little bit closer. This allows that the developments don't get too big for that lot size pretty much. And then another one is just number of units. Right now, the high density residential, it has 3+ units, so it can go anywhere from 3 to whatever the developer wants. So for the medium density residential, we decided to cap that at 10 units per lot. We looked at just existing lots that will be in that medium density, and then so those areas will not be allowed to go over 10 units. And then the high density residential, that will be switched to 9+ units in those areas. Yeah. So, and then we would have to rename the existing R4 single family district, just because we have R3 and R4 for medium and high density now. So this would then be changed to R5 single family residential to make room for that. But no changes to the actual single family residential zoning would be made. So this is the proposed timeline for these zoning code changes. There's basically 2 different timelines happening here with the Planning Commission today. If they approve it, it would go to a public hearing. Eventually the council, the public notices would be issued shortly after, and then a Planning Commission public hearing would be held next month for that. And then that's the same thing for the map amendment, just a 1-month delay. I do want to note that I do believe that the September 1st Planning Commission is on Labor Day. So I'm not sure if that would get delayed or not. I'll have to talk with Matt about that further, when we get there.
All right, any questions?
I had a couple of
Yep.
comments. I appreciated the analytics between communities.
Yep.
That's good work on that. I look at some of these numbers and it's hard to quantify what's appropriate. So I appreciate that. I was gonna ask too, this is more of a generic question that I was gonna ask Matt if he cared, but any opposition to page numbers in these packets? I don't know. I like a good page number, because I was thinking, like, as I come up with questions and everybody's like, where are you reading that? You know, like page number. blah,
3/4 of
blah.
the way through.
But each packet could, like this section could have 1 through 5, or in the, yeah.
Because if you
I
look,
just like
It
a
does
good
help.
page
but
number.
if you do look,
It's next to the.
these were all numbered.
Yeah, yep, those are numbered because they're
Part of the.
yeah, that's right. And most of the time they're not numbered, so, but anyways, I
No,
was
it's a
taking
good,
notes and
it's a good recommendation. I mean, it's pretty easy to just number them.
Yeah.
You can do that automatically, so we could definitely
if
start
you
doing
or
that. in
Matt
the
don't wanna
future.
do that, that's fine too.
But do it because Steve wants it, alright? Any other questions or thoughts? If not, I'll go ahead, yeah, so our recommendation, you got the timetable. I think we move forward with it, I like the idea. Again, I'm one of those, as I've gotten older, I thought, boy, where I am now, it's 5 foot to setbacks on either side for single-family home. I'm thinking, geez, you can pass the toilet paper over to Josh, my neighbor, but in reality, we eat up a lot of farmland in a heck of a hurry. Right now, I even think our 8 on one side, 12 on the other, that's a lot there. It's a lot. I wouldn't say 8 and 8 would be nice. And then they get two reasons. One, the developer can sell a few more lots, which helps them cover his cost. Number 2, we're not eating up farmland as fast. And then number 3, this high density, if we can go up another story, we're providing without eating this way. So that's just my opinion on this whole deal. So I like this idea. I think it's a good idea.
You're making comments about residential, the what's in here for setbacks and whatnot, that's for that medium and high density, right?
right,
Yeah.
right.
I don't mind them close when they're high density, because you're kind of already in a
Right.
people
You're in
on
a
top of
high-density
people
area.
scenario, but I don't like houses 5 feet apart either.
I don't either. I think 8. I'd like a little more than 5. Because 16 is pretty good to get between. Because even, 5 and 5, I want to go to my backyard and put a patio back there. You ain't going back there unless you got a very small skid loader.
Right.
At least 8 gives you that option. But again, I don't mind keeping the lots a little smaller. And yeah, you can have certain areas where, okay, here's the higher buck one, but keep them small. Because that's another affordable thing. If they can get 5 more lots in development, they could probably sell the lots a little cheaper to try to make housing more affordable, which we know that isn't really possible right now.
Right.
It'll pay for that $1,000 they need to put in the plan.
But it might, you know what I mean? If they can do another 5 lots, because
They won't.
we allow them 8-foot setbacks on either side, and yet we're getting our turn lanes, we're getting housing, so, but anyhow. What do you need from the commission here? Do you recommend to continue with the
Yep,
timeline?
yeah, recommendation, approval or denial.
You wanna make a motion to recommend moving forward with this change in the zoning?
I'll make the motion.
I'll second it.
So I got a motion made, seconded, to move forward with the proposed change for zoning and adding an R4 district and taking 4 and moving it to 5 and all the numbers here. Doesn't mean things can't change, but
No.
right now it's a proposal. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. All right, Luke, thank you. The next item?
Yep, so the next item is the alley vacation request. It's along Young Street and Gibbs. On March 20th, 2023, Parks and Public Works Committee discussed vacating or abandoning unimproved alleys. So the process for vacating an alley that is unimproved basically requires that a written petition by property owners or a resolution by council declaring discontinuance for the public interest requires it. And then that basically accumulates into a public hearing for the adjoining property owners on that unimproved alleyway. So this is the unimproved alleyway that's in question. The request came from 170 Young Street. And basically this red area right here is city land. It's an alley, but there's no gravel. It's an unimproved alleyway. So basically, if the proposal were to go through, the property lines would be basically brought back halfway through that alleyway. So along that dashed line there, the property lines would basically just be extended back,
Yeah, the
so.
right of way gets split 50/50 on
Correct.
adjoining property owners.
Yep.
Is there any
So,
easements through there? I know, is there power lines down through there? We have to worry about easements, or does that Excel still have their easement anyway?
So the utility rights, they would still be continued through, so they would be able to get through there
It doesn't
still.
affect them in any way?
Correct, yes.
So it's understood. Is there, and my only thought, I'm sure it's unwritten, you know, that back in the day, they didn't have a written, here's an easement for utilities. It's just they allowed, but nowadays, I know most of the time they'll just put an easement. So could it be vacated and say there's a 10-foot easement or 16-foot easement down through there? 8 on each side or something, so that you have access for, there's no water, sewer,
Yeah.
there's nothing there, just,
On like the outer sides there,
Yeah.
or?
well, no, right down the middle of the whole
Wherever
lot.
it's red.
Yeah, wherever it's red, an easement, so, you know, of course, like I say, I think it's unwritten and Excel has to do with that, but I don't want all of a sudden that, hey, that's mine, Excel, get off, it's not an alley anymore. You don't want really that. Anytime you get an easement, I think it makes sense.
Right,
This is my thought.
yeah, could write that
In
down.
case for the unthinkable needs to
Right.
be done.
So what I'd ask you, Luke, is to find out if we vacate it, can we vacate it with the fact that there's a 16-foot easement, 8 foot on each side of that vacated property?
Yeah, so
vacated
so you
alley.
don't put a shed right on the top of it.
Right,
You know, because if our power's out, I don't want them all, geez, now Excel's gonna go, well, we gotta jog around and get
Yeah.
around, and, you know, we wanna make sure they have access. That's
Yeah.
just my thought.
I had a couple of quick questions.
Yep.
This is just for this section, right? It's worded in a way that may
Yeah, I-
wonder if it's like,
It should be stated just for this particular spot,
that's right,
Yeah,
right?
just for this alleyway,
Yeah.
yes.
because it was kind of weird, like they were doing it to all.
And that'll be the public hearing, they'll make sure that's identified properly.
Yep,
Okay.
I understand it correctly that all the participants in this would have to sign off on it, right? Is that,
I would have to get back to you on that. I'm not
I don't
for
necessarily
sure
think
if they
so.
would.
If the city
What did it
decides
say
to
about,
vacate, they just get that. They don't have to do anything, they just get it deeded to them, I think.
sure, but, didn't say something about all the neighbors had to,
There is,
Well, agree.
with like a petition, but, there's also, the council can initiate it, which
I think it
is
said that
what happened
they
in
had
this
to mail
process.
something, tell them.
petition, is that a, something mailed to them, or is a petition an opportunity for them to eject? I don't, when I was a kid, I ran every one of those alleys, but now I haven't been down them in a lot of years, and some people have garages in the middle, and so if we, you know, they might want it, but they might not, because they just built a garage back there, and they.
Of course.
Well,
This feature-
according to the gentleman who was here for the council, there was no garage or anything in the back at the time.
But if there's if there's a stipulation that says the neighbors, who's not gonna sign off on that if you don't need it? You know, you're gonna be like, yeah, give me my yard, you know, that's
Yeah.
great. But that's where you'd be able to catch that, is have somebody, have an opportunity to object to it.
Yeah, and then the council has to make that call.
Right.
Yep. So they all do get notified, I do know that. And that's where they can object. I did see it back here where
Yeah, I'm trying
in
to find
the,
it.
public notice intent to vacate unimproved alley city, and it just says all interested persons and affected property owners are encouraged to attend, provide comments, written objections or inquiries may also be submitted in advance. So everyone has a right to object to this.
That's all
I don't think they have to
sure is
agree
in
to it,
there.
but they have the right to object, and then at that point, the council, oh, I've never thought of that, yeah, maybe we
Right.
shouldn't vacate it this time. I mean, that is why we have the public hearing, is in case there's a really valid reason why
Right.
they shouldn't. So, all right, do we need a motion to move forward with this, or just the recommendation?
Yep, so recommendation, approve or deny, that the process will continue as scheduled, basically, accumulating in that public hearing, that's scheduled
All
for
right, I'll
July
entertain a
20th.
motion one way or the other,
I'll make a motion to approve,
recommend,
continuing.
yep.
And I'll second that for Steve Kent.
Motion made, second to approve or recommend continuing on with the vacation. Any other discussion on the motion? If not, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carried. Any other business that the commission has, or Luke? I'll entertain a
Then I'll
motion.
make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and second to adjourn. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carried. Thanks, Josh. Thank you, Luke. Just like that, piece of cake.